Hey there, Bible buddies. I've got another Bible review for you today. Now, if there ever was an underdog of vintage Bible production, I feel like Holman was it. I feel like I really don't hear about Holman vintage Bibles very often, and I'm not sure why that's the case. They're very nice. They're certainly not like the very best I've ever seen, but they're certainly not the very worst I've ever seen. But a lot of their editions are like just like good, strong editions. They have like some really nice features to them, and like the construction is pretty solid. It's obviously with every Bible, it's got a couple misses and a couple hits. But certainly overall, it's definitely they're nice Bibles. And again, I'm not too sure why you don't hear very much in the way of like Holman vintage Bibles. I really couldn't tell you, right? Now, one thing I did notice is that they didn't have as much variety, say, as like all the rest of the Bible manufacturers, right? You look at like Oxford, and they just had like an endless supply of different varieties of Bibles and sizes and all that stuff. Holman really just had like, the King James version. I think they did the RSV. And then even like the King James version, they only had like a couple different editions, like the Cushing, which is this one. It's a Cushing text, I guess. And then they had like a Jewel, I think is what it was called. And there might have been like maybe like only one other one. They really didn't have very many, which might have been why, I guess. Maybe they weren't talked about so much. But again, let's go ahead and take a look at this one, and we'll see that it's actually a pretty nice Bible, right? So again, it's a Holman, right? And on the front, it's very clean. You can see this wonderful grain, right? The grain is so very nice because it is it is a French Morocco, right? And French Morocco back then was definitely much different than French Morocco nowadays. If you guys are familiar with like Cambridge French Moroccos, I mean, you may as well call it like a hardback. It's just like some hard, kind of tough, durable leather that they use. I'm not sure what exactly it is or how they get it like that. But this is not the case with this. I mean, granted, this is like a stiff leather, but it doesn't feel the same as kind of like Cambridge's modern French Morocco. This feels just kind of like a stiff leather, but it does still feel like leather. The modern French Morocco Cambridge stuff barely even feels like leather. This actually just feels like maybe like a nice solid kind of goatskin cover, but it is stiff, right? But not in the same sense as the other stuff, right? So you can see that there is a little perimeter liner on the edge. And then on the spine, we have Holy Bible, Concordance Red Letter, and Holman. And there are some little rib indications that, I mean, these are about as like rib indications as rib indications get. You can barely even feel that they're there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, which is kind of the standard. I feel like most have 5. And the perimeter line continues on the top and the bottom there, and onto the back. And you can see that wonderful grain on the back as well. It's a very nice grain. I mean, it looks like a goatskin, right? Like a pebbly goatskin kind of grain. Feels very nice. All right. As far as the other details go, we have red and yellow head and tail bands. And there is this kind of gilt, right? But I don't even know. It's kind of like a brass gilt. It doesn't really look like a gold. It definitely has like a brass kind of color to it. Right? I would almost expect like a green patina to start forming after some time, Not that I'm going to try and age it myself, but maybe after some time. You do have a double-sided satin red ribbon here, and it is a nice like thick ribbon. It's kind of average in width, but like the thickness it's a very nice thick ribbon. And you can see kind of the red and yellow head and tail band there at the bottom, or tail band at the bottom. Yeah, very nice. On the inside, it is a black paper paste down, and like we've been seeing a lot recently, it's kind of that Saffiano paper, so it's got the kind of cross hatching going all over the place. We do have some nice corner work there. On the bottom, it is stamped again with French Morocco leather. On the back, some more nice corner work. You can see on the front there that it has split. I think it's split in a couple places. There's another small one there. Generally speaking, I have found over the years that all of the expensive leathers tend to hold up the least well over time. Like all my most of my Morocco skin Bibles all have like cracks in them somewhere, usually on the hinges, right? And I have a couple sealskin Bibles. It's the same way. They're usually beat up on the hinges, or sealskin even starts wearing everywhere else. And weirdly, the cheapest leather, the genuine leather, that's the stuff that seems to hold up the best. Oddly, obviously I have some genuine leathers that are cracked in the same spots, but by and large, the genuine leather Bibles that I have seem to hold up like the longest over time. I don't know if that's going to be the same case nowadays. I would imagine their leathers are definitely going through a different process than they were back then. because they really don't feel like this. So I'm not sure nowadays what would hold up better, but just an interesting point of reference, I guess. So let's go ahead and get into the text. You have a couple thick sheets there. There's a lovely presentation page there, blue and red, right, with a little woo going, a little vine growing, little rosebush vine. And we are going to have some kind of colored prints throughout. Here's one of them, right? And this says Noah building the ark. And you have just a blank sheet of paper there. Have your title page. I'll let you guys read that. You can see, so it is produced by A.J. Holman Company in Philadelphia, and it is a 9-point Cushing. So like I said, they have the Cushing, and then they had another one called the Jewel. I think there was one more, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But again, they didn't really have too many. And the Cushing is the one you're going to see the most on eBay, by and large. I know that for a while, Holman did do quite a bit of Masonic Bibles. So I have a couple of those. I'll review them at some point, but I think that they're all Cushing. Also, they're all the Cushing model also. So they're printed in the United States. Then we have our Old Testament and New Testament books, your table of contents, and you have your pronunciation key there for all of your kind of phonetic markings. Then another table of contents, but in alphabetical, or sorry, the proper order instead of alphabetical order. And then you have the first book of Moses called Genesis. So we'll take a look here. You can see it is a double column verse by verse. Right, and it is using Pilcrow markers to indicate a new paragraph. It's a double line drop cap at the beginning of the chapter. You have your page number at the bottom center there. I'll turn the page to see if we get a more kind of standard layout for the majority of what you're going to see. So it's quite a bit going on, given the fact that it's just a text. So it is this example. I think I can't remember, so I'm not gonna specify. I can't remember if all of the Cushings are text or if they had some with references. I'm not gonna say because I don't remember. But at least in this edition, there's no footnotes, there's no references, but there are page numbers at the top center. You do have your book name and chapter numbers in the top corners, and then you have your running headers both in the top gutter, and then you also have kind of running headers here at the beginning of the chapter. It doesn't look like they are within the chapter. Yeah, just at the beginning of each chapter, I guess it gives you kind of an overall broad view, and then your ones at the top there would be kind of a more specific to that column sort of thing. So it's a very nice text. It's very bold. It's very dark, right? There's a little bit of print non-uniformity. You can see it here pretty well. Hold it up for you guys. So like this page is fairly nice and dark, and this page is a little bit lighter. I don't know if the camera's picking up well on that, but that is the case. The paper is very nice. It's a nice bone color, which I appreciate. I'm a big fan of that color of paper, that and the yellow papers, you know. So let's go to the poetic section. And we'll see what we can find. Going the wrong way, I always do. So there's your poetic section. Obviously, there's no poetic formatting, right? Because it's just a King James double column verse by verse. But you can see, Psalm 119. It is laid out how many would prefer. Now, if you notice, the text does go way deep into the gutter there. Yeah, so there's that. And one of the other problems, if I remember correctly, of the Cushing is that, like, maybe not of the Cushing, but at least of this binding, is it wants to do that, right? So if you notice at the beginning of the video, I had my hand on it because it does not want to stay open. It wants to close. And I think that that's a problem kind of through the majority of it. Take a look at a couple of these prints so you guys can see them. Show you what's at the bottom. David and Goliath, that's always a classic. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't want to stay open until you get like closer to the middle of the Bible. But it is what it is. As far as show through goes, it's not terrible. I'll show you guys there. I mean, it's really not bad. You get a very little bit of it here. I mean, it's not on indie paper or anything like that, but it's still nice enough paper. And the paper is nice and smooth. It doesn't feel kind of awkward or weird or chalky. I use that adjective in another video. One thing you will notice here, I'll hold it to the side. Hopefully you guys can see it. If you guys notice, there's some brown speckling here on the page edges. And I'm not too sure what that is. So I had two things that came into mind. Number one was foxing, right? Which is what I hoped it was. Foxing is when you get kind of like orange speckling on paper. The problem is, though, foxing usually only happens with much older paper, kind of like turn-of-the-century paper. It doesn't really happen so much with modern papers. So the next issue would be that might be mold, right? And mold is like a big deal. It's a big issue. Usually with Bibles that have mold, most people I think just toss them, or books that have mold, they just toss them because the mold can spread. Now mold has spores in it, right? So I mean, I keep all my Bibles like individually boxed, so there was very little risk of the mold spreading, right? Number one. But one of the tricks that I read online, for whatever it's worth, one of the things that you can do to, I guess, deactivate the mold, right? Like you can't really clean the mold off these page edges. It's there, it's stained the page edges. It is what it is, if it is mold. But one of the things you can do is you can take your moldy Bible, you put it in a Ziploc bag, and then you throw it in the freezer for a few days. And I guess what happens is once the mold gets, down below like a certain point temperature-wise, it deactivates the spores. So the spores become inert. Right, so the mold is obviously still there. It's always going to be there. Like I said, it's stained the page. But as far as like the mold spreading, it shouldn't get any worse. And I'll certainly let you guys know if that's ever not the case. And I open this back up and it's just a bright red, spongiform creature running across the living room. I'll let you guys know. But that's what I've heard, is that once you freeze the Bible, the risk of the mold spreading goes away, because, like I said, the spores have become inert. So that's something I heard. Again, it's from the internet, so trust it as much as you would trust anything else from the internet. But let's go ahead and get to the New Testament. It's the Last Supper there. Oh, and then we go red letter. Well, it said red letter on the spine, so it's no surprise, right? Let's see. There's another illustration. I love the illustration sometimes. I know some people are kind of might not always agree with using them, but I don't mind them. All right, so we have our New Testament title page, translated out of the original Greek. Then we have the Gospel according to Matthew. Let me get in frame. Whoop, there we go. And one of my other reviews, I had talked about this image. I used to have a book by Holman called the Holman Rainbow Bible, and it had I think it was like this image or something very similar on the cover printed on it. I'll have to dig up that Bible and do a review on it. It's hilarious. It's an old Bible for sure. And here you can see the red letter. Now the red letter, it's middle of the road. I mean, it's not the worst I've seen, but it's not the best. On a scale of like 1 to 10, I'd probably give it like a 4. It's not the worst I've seen, like I said, but it's not super awesome. But it is kind of hit or miss, because like this side looks lighter than kind of here and here. And this darker red is more pleasing to my eye than this lighter red, obviously. And I would imagine, see, this looks darker to me, but then over here it looks kind of light. So it's kind of hit or miss. You can see here, too, the registration was off. All right, so you see here how the black ink is getting right onto the red text, and it's all kind of scrunched and stuff. So the red wasn't even aligned properly. But like I said, they've made a whole bunch of Cushings, so I'm assuming they should have some red, maybe some black letters out there. We'll see as we go, because I have a few Cushing editions, so we'll kind of check it out, and we'll figure it out. Me and you will figure it out, guys. We will figure it out. Rusty Bibles and Company. But here you can see like this red looks really nice and deep red, doesn't it? All right. So again, I'm not sure what the difference is, but this is nice. This is a nice dark red, almost like a Cambridge nowadays kind of red. But certainly the stuff that we're just looking at, not so much. So I don't know what would cause that. The Last Supper, I think we already looked at that. See, and even this looks pretty nice and red, like a deep red. So I don't know. Maybe the red didn't have time to get warmed up until the end. I don't know. All right, let's go to the end, and we'll see. There's a pretty good size chunk of helps here. So we have the end of Revelation. Then we have a new practical concordance to the Old and New Testaments. Ooh, and I'll show you this in small text. There you go. Not too shabby. And we'll flip through the concordance. There's a nice wide margin on the concordance, albeit the concordance is kind of small. And it looks like that's the majority of it back here is the concordance. So that's the concordance, fairly chunky, nice sized concordance, right? Then we have favorite readings from the Bible. Copyright 1947 and 1949. I love it. So there are your favorite readings. You got your Beatitudes down there. A little bit of everything. I always love these sections. I'm not going to lie. I really do. I'm glad they did this. Selected Bible stories, the miracles, the parables. I think this became kind of standard fare in Holman Bibles for a while. Biblical background, a survey of each book. So these are short little summaries of each book of the Bible. And that kind of wraps it up. And you have a blank kind of thicker sheet here, and then you have your maps. So we've been seeing these a lot lately. I wonder where they came from. Let's see. It just says copyright of Hammond and Company, New York. So I'm not sure. We just looked at a Collins Bible and they had the same exact maps, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of this gray and blue with the bright colors. There we go. You got another kind of blank sheet there, and then you have your model number. I'm assuming is A312CR, and the end of the Bible. So, not too shabby, right? It's a nice addition. I think overall it's kind of a nice addition, especially considering what I paid for this one. I did not pay anything, like just about anything for this, and it's, I mean, really in great condition aside from the mold that had to be frozen. You know, all that. Let me get you some measurements. So it is, let's see here, 7 7/8 of an inch tall by 5.5 inches wide and about 1.5 inch thick. Not too bad. Let's see if it'll stay open. See, even here it's kind of here. Let's see where the breaking point is. Okay, not too shabby. Not too shabby. There's Samuel. Look, okay, so right about Deuteronomy. So you gotta get out of the Torah. Once you're out of the Torah, then you're good. Hopefully. There's Samson. Hey, Samson. Kind of. Okay, well, you know, you're gonna be struggling with it. And it's the stiffness of the binding. I know it is, because this, I mean, like, it feels nice, right? It's a very nice feeling cover, but you can definitely tell it's a very stiff piece of leather. Not quite as bad, again, as the Cambridge French Morocco for nowadays, but I mean, kind of close. All right, so let's go to the M in Moabitis. And we'll see that it is about a 9-point font versus Times New Roman for the uppercase. And for the lowercase, also a 9-point font. So a 9-point font all the way around versus Times New Roman for this edition, right? Not a bad, you know, font size. Not a bad layout. Certainly, if you're looking for a reader, right? This would make a nice one, a nice choice, right? And you do see, like I said, you do see Cushing's a lot on eBay. I'm like getting all finicky over here, picking stuff off my little sheet. You see Cushing's come up quite a bit on eBay, and usually people don't ask very much money for them. So certainly, if you prefer the KJV and you want something a little kind of vintage deal like this, it's not a bad deal to have. Bible buddies, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down below. If you could like, comment, subscribe, all that awesome, super helpful YouTube stuff, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, until next time, Bible buddies, bye.